For you, how important is the lack of wokeness of a software's company or developers when deciding whether to use it or not? That's a good question. Endo goes on to say, for me, it's somewhat important, but other factors such as viable alternatives and privacy concerns matter to me as well. Okay, so I need to be very clear about how I'm defining my words here. When I say that a piece of software is woke, right? Like the people behind it are woke. I don't mean that they have different politics to me. Like when I say that, it usually means something far more intense, right? So like, for example, if I go to a Linux distribution and the makers of that Linux distribution have complete polar opposite political views as me. We would never vote for the same people. We champion different causes, etc. I have no issue using that software, working on that software, working with the people, including the people who are wildly different from me politically, working on the stuff. I have no issue with any of that, right? For me, that's sort of like with artists. A musician or a great sci-fi author or movie directors or actors who have wildly different politics from me, I can still enjoy their art. I can still love their art. I might even still have a poster for their movie or whatnot on my wall. I have no issues with that. Where it starts to become a problem for me is when it becomes what I would consider to be in the software world woke, where they begin to enforce their politics, right? They start kicking people out and banning people who have the wrong politics, or they start discriminating against people for being wrong, being on the wrong side politically or voting for the wrong person. Or they begin implementing features that are intentionally harmful and discriminatory based on those politics. And a good example for that, luckily that doesn't come up quite as often, but a good example would be Facebook. Facebook, it was recently unveiled that Facebook had developed an entire software web app, an entire software portal specifically for the Biden-Harris administration to censor Americans on Facebook, right? So that people in the White House could log into Facebook and say, this person said something mean about me, block them and delete their content. And they could do mass bannings and mass censorship using specially custom written software just for them to censor Americans. Now, it was used specifically to censor people they disagreed with politically. I have a problem with that, right? And so when I'm making choices about software I use, services that I use based on those politics, that's really what I'm looking at here. Is, are they discriminating based on that? Are they hurting people based on that? Are they attacking people based on political differences? Do they hate me so much that I'm not even allowed to talk to them or hang out on their forum because I'm just too different from them? Well, yeah. I don't like using software in those circumstances, and there's a few reasons for that. One of the big reasons is that it makes me feel gosh darn yucky to utilize software where the people hate me and really don't allow me to exist in their communities. I'm banned and blocked, and I'm not allowed to speak my mind outside of their community and still be allowed within it, right? Like a lot of open source projects have rules where anything you say on the internet, right, can kind of come back to bite you within that community. So like if you want to work on some specific open source web browser, if you don't uphold the right politics on Twitter or your Facebook page or in some random forum that no one's ever heard of, and someone finds out about it, you're out of the project, right? And a lot of projects do this. And for me, I have to start drawing a line there and say, I'm not okay with that. So in those instances, as long as there is a viable option for me to move to, I will. If there's a slightly better option to move to, I will. Because in some cases, it's shades of gray, right? There's many different scenarios. I mean, because we can think of multiple Linux projects and web browsers and various other applications and online services and whatnot, where we're all like, oh gosh, they're using politics and political disagreements to censor and ban and ostracize and attack. And oh, I don't like any of that. I don't like any of what I'm seeing in front of me. But that one over there on the left is a little less bad than the rest. So, okay, that's the one I'm going to go with, right? So it's an important thing for me. But I agree, there's a lot of other things to consider. I mean, we need to consider the quality of the software, how much it gets what you need to get done, how much you enjoy using it, what are the privacy implications of using said software or online service. You've got to weigh all of this into it, because all of it impacts not just the practical usage of any piece of software, but it impacts your enjoyment about using it, right? So like, let's say, for example, there was an online service that I could use where they didn't hate me at all. In fact, they liked my politics, but they were collecting all of my data and selling it to every government and organization on Earth. I had absolutely no privacy, and their software was lacking significant features I wanted to make myself enjoy using it over the other alternatives. It's like, well, okay, maybe I'm not going to use that one, even though they may agree with me politically. It's just one of many things I think we need to take into consideration. That's kind of how I look at it. Now, I know many people who, when they use a piece of software, whether it's Firefox, the web browser, or various Linux versions like Debian or OpenSUSE, that I would define as pretty woke, right? And they're like, you know what? I may be a right-leaning person, but I'm going to use this highly woke piece of software. You know what? In spite of it, right? To them, it's almost like kind of a funny thing, because it's like, ha, 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 ha. Firefox and Mozilla may hate me for who I am, but I'm still going to use their software for free and benefit from the work they do. Ha, ha, ha. I kind of get that too. So this is a personal thing. You've got to make those calls on your own based on how you feel about it. Now, when we're talking about supporting a project or advocating for a project or working on a project, I think that's a whole nother issue that needs to come up.